Well, it's a disappointing way to end what has been an incredible season, but I could not be more proud of Mark Pope and the Kentucky Wildcats.
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky, your daily Kentucky Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, and on tonight's episode of Locked On Kentucky, we are going to be recapping Kentucky basketball's 78-65 loss to the Tennessee Volunteers in the Sweet 16. Cats can't get it done from start to finish. Came out a little lethargic, and they could not find a way in the second half, and yet I am extremely proud of the way that this team has performed this season, and I believe that the future for Mark Pope and the Cats is extremely bright. This episode is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy. You can head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from. If you need one now, you can grab a 5-Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. Stock up today and stay energized. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. I want to remind everyone out there that we are free and available on all platforms. And if you're watching on YouTube, I would greatly appreciate it if you subscribe to the show. And if you are listening on podcast, I would also appreciate it if you subscribed there as well. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. Again, Kentucky loses to Tennessee in the Sweet 16. 78-65 is the final score. Cat season comes to an end, and I'll just go ahead and say it right here off the top. This is my fourth season covering the Kentucky Wildcats, which is just crazy to think about. Like, this is where we're at. I got 2 seasons with Oscar Tshiebwe and company. Then we got Rob and Reed and the freshmen last season. And here we are now in Mark Pope's first year at the helm. Kentucky loses in the Sweet 16. And I've got to say, this is the best I have felt coming out of an NCAA tournament loss in my entire time doing this show. Kentucky faltered in the first half, was down 28-43, won the second half by 2. It was just a lot of things that I believe went wrong for Kentucky in this game, but the reality of the situation is Kentucky's future is extremely bright. A lot of guys from this squad that I'm going to remember very fondly are going to be graduating, going to be moving on, hopefully, to the NBA. A lot of guys Kentucky is going to have to replace. We'll break that down in the transfer portal. In fact, Kentucky has already gotten one commitment in Cam Williams out of Tulane, a phenomenal freshman for the Green Wave a season ago. We'll break down his skill set on the next episode of Locked On Kentucky, as well as some other transfer portal news coming out of Lexington. But obviously, tonight, I could not be more proud and more impressed with both the way that this team and this coaching staff performed. You look at the season as a whole, and if you're a realistic Kentucky fan, you start to see the positives. You start to see all of the things that went well. You beat 8 top 15 opponents. You finished above 500 in SEC play in a season where the SEC is as good as we have seen it ever, hands down, full stop. You also got to see Kentucky beat what is likely going to end up being either a national championship contender or a national champion in both the Duke Blue Devils and the Florida Gators. Let me be clear here. This was not a failed season for Mark Pope by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, I believe Mark Pope and the Cats overexceeded expectations by a pretty significant margin, especially when you start to consider the context surrounding this season, the injuries, the way that the league was structured, the strength of college basketball this season. It all plays a factor into that 24-12 record that Kentucky ends their first season with Mark Pope with. And again, just the fight, the grit, the impressive victories, the ups and downs, the ability to come back from 112th and adjusted defensive efficiency after giving up 98 points to Ole Miss all the way up inside the top 50. This has been an incredible, and I mean incredible, coaching job from Mark Pope. Are there things Kentucky can improve on? Absolutely. Are we going to have to do a lot of things in the transfer portal in order to get this roster into the shape that we want it for next season? Yes, but the foundation, I think, is built, and it is as firm as it could possibly be. Mark Pope is the coach that we will ride or die with for the future of this program, and again, I could not be more proud, and I think it is exemplified in the way that they performed both in this tournament and at the late stages of this season. I want to give credit to the players. I want to give props to just how hard these kids fought. It's so clear Forget anything you read on social media. Forget anything you read on a message board about this team. Watch the way that they have performed as of late and believe that this team actually didn't just care. They strongly cared for both this program and for each other. Lamont Butler, Amari Williams, Dawe, Koby Brea, guys who got injured, Jackson Robinson, Kerr Carissa, even Travis Perry, who has an injury here to end the season. This was an incredible performance in terms of effort, especially to end this season. I want to put this in perspective for everybody out there that is either sad or depleted or upset. Lift yourself up and realize this team beat Duke and Florida when they were fully healthy. This was a roster that was built from scratch in about a month and a half by Mark Pope. Everything was cobbled together at the very end. They fought through injuries. They fought through an incredibly tough schedule, and yet they tie an all-time record for top 15 wins. They beat Duke. They beat Florida. They beat all these phenomenal opponents. You can't watch the way Mark Pope did things at the beginning of his tenure here in Lexington and think anything but positivity moving forward. This was an incredible season for Kentucky. The ups and downs, the drama, the comebacks, the players, the memories. You can't leave this year anything but pleased. And I am so proud of the way that this team played through adversity and through struggle and through injury, and it only gets better from here. I fully believe that. You look at what's coming in next season. You've got guys like Jasper Johnson, Malachi Marino, Caden Lewis, now Cam Williams added to the fold. You get somebody like Dawe back there, or Colin Chandler. There are legitimate pieces and legitimate reasons to believe that this is not just another roster that competes in the SEC next season. This is a roster that's going to be at the very top, competing for the entire thing, competing for a national championship. It's the coaching, it's the personnel, it's the momentum. This was a great first season, and I hate that it ends here against a Tennessee team that is so good. We said it in the preview episode with Eric Kane. I wouldn't be surprised if this was it, if Kentucky ran out of gas and they faltered in the Sweet 16, especially considering the situation. I didn't come into this game thinking that either team would shoot particularly well. You saw that at the beginning of the first half. They ended up settling in. That wasn't necessarily Kentucky's problem per se in this matchup, but still, it was a lot going on outside of this one game. And again, when you put it all into perspective, yes, there's room to be upset. Yes, there's room to be disappointed. Kentucky could have absolutely made a deeper run, but the fact that they even made it this far, first Sweet 16 since 2019, guys, some of you were still in high school when that happened. You can't look at it. You cannot look at it and be anything more than ecstatic for the way that Mark Pope and company could be moving here in the future. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you share that excitement? Do you share that opinion? Because, guys, I am so proud of the way that this team fought, and we'll continue to break it down. We'll continue to talk about kind of how things fell here, kind of what Kentucky's going to be doing moving forward. A lot of things to move here after the end of the season. We'll talk portal. We'll talk the recap of the rest of this game. Why didn't things work out for Kentucky here? We'll break it all down here in just a second. Before I do that, though, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at Nissan. We're all about the stats here at Locked On Kentucky because, of course, numbers don't lie. And when it comes to the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X, the numbers are on an MVP level with the ability to tow up to 8,500 pounds. It can quite literally carry the whole team, plus the gear, wherever you need to go. It's powered by a twin-turbo V6 engine, delivering the strength and performance to handle highways, back roads, and everything in between. And with room for up to 8 people, the Armada Pro 4X is built for big crews, big adventures, and even bigger memories. Whether you're exploring off-road trails or rolling up to the arena, the Armada Pro 4X brings power, versatility, and style wherever you go. You can take your adventures to new heights with the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X. You can learn more at nissanusa.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. Of course, the March Madness might be over for Kentucky, but it's still here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when their first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. Obviously, here as the field tightens, you've got your eye on a few different big-time teams, maybe taking a look at Auburn, maybe taking a look at Duke, a team that Kentucky has already beaten but is firing on all cylinders right now. You can stay in all the action with tournament games happening almost every day. There's something exciting every day to bet on. It's super easy and fast. The app is incredible to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly. There's no waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. All right, continuing along here on the Friday evening, a season-ending episode of Locked On Kentucky. Lance Dawe hanging out here with you. I really appreciate you guys tuning into the show today. Listen, for everybody that has been there this entire time, for everybody that has been there every step of the way this season with the Kentucky Wildcats and with myself, I want to say a sincere thank you. You guys have been incredible to talk ball with, to kind of watch this alongside you guys, to see this first season unfold, a special first season for Mark Pope and company. And I just want to thank you guys for watching, for tuning in, for commenting, for supporting. This has been hands down my favorite season thus far. This has been my favorite team I have ever covered, period. And I cannot wait to continue to see how things unfold here, because I believe Mark Pope and company are just getting started. So again, Kentucky loses in the Sweet 16, 78-65 is the final score, to now a 30-7 Tennessee Volunteer squad that will face off against either Houston or Purdue. That game, as of this recording, still pending. I believe Auburn and Michigan just tipped off. By the way, side note, in case you cannot tell here, I am on the road doing a lot of work with the Locked On Podcast Network alongside Amazon Fire TV channel. It's been super exciting to get to go behind the scenes with kind of what is going on there with Locked On and the Bracket Breakdown crew. It has been incredible. I would highly encourage you guys to go check it out. Lots of NCAA tournament coverage still left to go, including not just the men's side, but the women's side as well. Very interesting things coming out of there with Juju Watkins getting hurt, some different big-time teams kind of getting serious down the stretch. Would love it if you guys went and checked that out. But Kentucky falls here, only scoring 69 points, despite shooting almost 50% from the floor and 40% from three. So what exactly happened here for this Kentucky squad? Well, it's something that we've talked about a little bit this season, and I think it came to a head here towards the end. I think energy has been something we have discussed over and over and over and over and over on this show, about Kentucky giving a consistent 40-minute effort. And again, the question that we gave here earlier this week about whether or not Kentucky would win this game is, can they give that consistent energy? And you saw for the first 30 minutes of this game, Kentucky just did not have that energy. They were slow. They were lethargic. They did not come out anticipating a competitive environment, it felt like. They just did not seem ready for the moment, despite very much so being ready against Troy and Illinois. It just feels like they kind of fell flat. And by the time they woke up, it was just a little too late. And you compare that with the reality of Tennessee. Look, as good as they are defensively, they hit a ton, and I mean a ton, of extremely tough shots, especially in the second half, to keep this thing at bay, to keep this a 13-point victory. You have to give credit to Zakai Ziegler and Chaz Lanier, two guys that had struggled immensely in their first two games this season against the Cats, and they come alive here. Zakai obviously finishing with 18 points, 10 assists. The Cats could not hold him at bay, and when you're hitting tough mid-range jumpers, when you're getting to the rim, not necessarily at will, but pretty consistently, I would note, there's almost nothing you can do about it, even if you are playing really tough defense. It reminds me in a way of Kentucky's game against Arkansas earlier this season, where, yes, Arkansas hit everything that they threw up from the timeline, but still, this Tennessee team, is not known for their offensive prowess, and they're not known against Kentucky to knock down those tough shots, and yet they do it tonight. So you have to give them credit. You have to at least respect it. Kentucky came out flat, and on top of that, Tennessee was ready, and they came out and executed in a very strange environment in Indianapolis. I will say the game just felt off. The vibes were off from the jump, and it was partially because of the way that Kentucky was playing early, but it was also just the atmosphere. We talked about this with Gordon Hayward, actually, when I was out doing Locked On production with Bracket Breakdown here over last weekend. He was discussing just how weird it is in Indianapolis, whenever you go to play in Lucas Oil in a football stadium, just the atmosphere, the life is sucked out of it. It completely takes the fans out of the picture, and I absolutely absolutely believe that that was a huge factor, at least in one of Kentucky's victories. Obviously, they were able to get things done on the road against the Vols in Knoxville, but this one felt just weird. Just so weird. The sight lines were off shooting the basketball. Koby Brea fell extremely flat in a game that Kentucky needed him to step up. It was just a very strange game. And Kentucky, again, 49% from the floor, 40% from three, but they did not capitalize defensively. And on top of this, they got beat on the glass, and they were destroyed when it came to turnovers. And the numbers necessarily here don't exactly jump off the page, just 12 turnovers for the Cats, but it's the 11 points that Tennessee got off of those turnovers that proved to be pivotal alongside their 14 offensive rebounds. 14 offensive rebounds. So many different second chance opportunities, and they capitalized. Those two numbers there, points off of turnovers and offensive rebounds. That is why I believe at the end of the day, if you want to point to a statistic, that's why Tennessee won this game. If you want to point to vibes, if you want to point to matchup, some tough shots were hit, and some things happened against Kentucky on the offensive end that you just don't typically see. But it is what it is. There's nothing you can do about it now. Frankly, I thought the officiating in this game was not great. But of course, I don't think that had anything to do with Kentucky's chances in this contest. I am not a fan of Doug Shows. I have said that multiple times on this show, but I don't think that he was the reason that either team had an advantage in this contest. It is something that I have harped on. It was not necessarily a factor here. I think that college basketball officiating has been nothing short of pathetic this season, and that's on both ends of the floor. Let me be clear. It was bad both ways. I was not a fan of some calls tonight, but again, has absolutely no bearing on the outcome or how Kentucky played in this game. I think they just simply did not have enough juice, and you have to, again, start to put some of this into context with the injuries, with the energy, with the ability to try and sustain a run with the state of this roster. Mark Pope did everything he could. I really do believe that. I think Kentucky did everything they could to try and hold on, and I will tell you this. Amari Williams did dunk the ball today. You saw it a couple of times. He was playing aggressive. He was playing hard. It almost gets you emotional seeing the scene at the end with Amari tearing up, with the with just the look on the sideline to a dejected Kentucky team that knows they were beat. You can't look at this roster. You can't look at this team and be anything other than impressed and proud. You cannot tell me you did not love every moment of this season with this squad, even the bad moments. It's Mark Pope's first team. It's going to be looked upon fondly. There's a lot of conversation on social media about how this team will be remembered, and I will just tell you this. I will forever look upon this team as an incredible season and a great squad and a team that gave it everything they had. I hate the way it ended, but I still love them all the same. This has been such a great year. Let's look ahead here briefly. Let's talk about what we can expect immediately from Kentucky as they kind of wade here now. I hate to say it, wade into the offseason as we get ready for what will be a very different squad for Mark Pope and company, which I hate, but it is reality. Before we dive into that, though, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at 5 Hour Energy. Daylight savings snuck up on us again, and if you're feeling that lost hour of sleep, 5 Hour Energy has your back. That extra sunshine means more time for fun, but sometimes you need a little boost to power through, whether you're staying up late watching the NCAA tournament like we were tonight, or squeezing in a round of golf after work, or just trying to keep up with your busy day. 5 Hour Energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. I've been staying up super late, obviously watching all of the tournament action, and 5 Hour Energy helps keep me up the next day. It's on-the-go convenience, whether I'm at a game or traveling, like I have been as of late. 5 Hour Energy is easy to grab and keeps me feeling refreshed. It is the go-to. You can head over to 5hourenergy.com and find over 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, and peach mango. Mango, my personal favorite. You can even build your own 12-pack or 24-pack, and it's delivered right to your door. If you need one now, you can grab a 5 Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. They are everywhere. You can stock up today and stay energized. All right, wrapping up the season-ending episode of Locked On Kentucky. Lance Dawe hanging out here with you again on the road here, discussing Kentucky basketball's 78-65 loss to the Tennessee Volunteers. Season comes to an end for the Cats. There's going to be a lot of changes. There's going to be a lot of things to come in terms of roster turnover, in terms of transfer portal additions, maybe some losses potentially. Again, I don't know anything, but we're probably going to see some movement there. You have to be ready for it. You have to accept it. And I will probably do an episode here in the next day or so, kind of reflecting further, give it a whole episode to kind of credit these kids for kind of how they've fought this season and who they were to this Kentucky program. You're going to lose Lamont Butler. You're going to lose your leader, your starting point guard, to graduation. One of the best defenders to ever put on a Kentucky uniform, played his guts out in this game, shot very well from three, hit some tough shots. He competed. He played well. He played very well this season. The team was completely different without him on the floor. You're going to lose Jackson Robinson. You already did, but you're going to lose him to likely the NFL draft as well as graduation. Nothing you can do about that. An incredible shooter, especially in conference play, won Kentucky some games. You look at that Mississippi State win on the road, that was huge. Somebody that also played phenomenal in the first game against Tennessee in Knoxville. He will be remembered very fondly for his contributions to this team. Somebody that I think will, I said this earlier today on ESPN Radio, Amari Williams might likely go down as the most underrated and underappreciated player in all of Kentucky basketball history. Yes, Lamont Butler was incredibly important to this team. It cannot be understated how special Amari Williams was because of all the things Mark Pope asked him to do. He asked him to be a defensive juggernaut. He asked him to step up and be the best rim protector on this team. He asked him to run an offense that he was learning as he went. He asked him to make good decisions, sound decisions with the basketball consistently. He asked him to be an efficient player at the rim. He asked him to be one of the best defensive rebounders in program history. Amari played hard this year. Amari played so well. And we're losing him to graduation. And I hate it because I would love to have him on next year's squad. You're going to lose Koby Brea. You're going to lose the best three-point shooter in all of college basketball. Didn't play well tonight against Tennessee, but I'll tell you what he did do. He played phenomenal all year. He won that game against Florida, against a national title contender, a major national title contender. He found a way at various points this season to keep things going offensively, despite how aggressively the SEC handled him. Super physical. He created his own shot towards the end of the year. He had to step into a role he wasn't comfortable with because of injuries, and he played really well. He's a dang good player, and he's going to be great in the NBA. You're losing Andrew Carr to graduation, the first of what is likely many incredible versatile forwards under Mark Pope at Kentucky. The outside shot, the ball handling, the touch in the paint, that kid played hard here at the end of the season. Some lulls because of injuries, but once he got healthy again, he fought. This team fought so incredibly hard. Andrew Carr will be gone to graduation, and hopefully, Carr will be gone to the NBA. That's the core you're losing. You're losing Ainsley Almanor off the bench. One of the best three-point shooters maybe in Kentucky history, not by volume, but certainly by efficiency. You're going to be losing him as well. You're going to be losing Kerr Carissa, who you only got for 8 games, but still made his impact nonetheless. You better watch that space with him in the transfer portal. That's all I'll say there. It was a great year. I'm so proud of this team. With the recruiting class coming in, with the transfer portal wide open in front of Kentucky, they don't get Donovan Dent because they didn't want to spend $3 million on him. They're going to use that money wisely elsewhere. Wait for maybe as March Madness ends, some other big-time names will enter the portal. I would expect them to. And Kentucky's going to have not their pick of the litter, but after seeing the way that this roster competed this season with how all these guys out of the portal played and how their efficiencies rose and how they were utilized and they looked good. I mean, I don't understand if you're a transfer portal player why you wouldn't want to come to the University of Kentucky. There is no better alternative, at least not that I believe. So that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. An end to Mark Pope's first season. A bitter one, but I think we're going to look back at this team fondly. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On UK. You can follow me on Twitter at @LanceDaw_, and you can follow the show over on Instagram. That is at Kentucky Podcast. Any questions, comments, concerns, you can leave those in the YouTube comments below. Hit me on the socials. I will see you all on Monday for another episode of Locked On Kentucky. Hope you guys have a great rest of your evening. God bless, and go Cats.